Okay.
Start?
Yeah. Good luck.
My research in the whole process in PATH and before PATH is about focusing the topic of boredom. And I would like to mention how I come up with this interest. In the beginning, it is started from having the module of the transgressive body module, where in this module we have this topic on boredom, and from the class I have discovered an inspiration that actually boredom could be a very good tool for making artwork. And then I also try to think back my previous way of making artwork, where I always tend to avoid boredom for the audience and for myself. I'm always afraid of making something bored that I think will make the audience to dislike the work. So therefore, in this research, I try to challenge myself in inducing in boredom, and also as an exploration for myself to be in a boredom state. And from doing the theoretical research before I came to PATH, I have found like many articles and many readings about boredom, about how philosophical perspective, and also the psychology perspective about boredom. But from these sources, I did not find any support about deliberate boredom, and also how one can actually desire about boredom. So then, I go back to the text I found from the module of the transgressive body, which is the text of Kenneth Goldsmith, where he described what is unboring and what is boring. So unboring for him, he explained it is a voluntary state where actually it is sort of boredom that we surrender ourselves, and the boring he explained it is a forced one, and it's being someone being in somewhere that he don't want to be, or do some action or in a task that he don't want to do. So then I consider my action, my desire of inducing boredom can be categorized in as unboring. And then I decided how am I going to conduct my own research. So I decided to do experiment about the desire to be bored with different boring tasks I'm going to create. So these tasks were actually created from taking some example from the psychologist's experience, and also some are designed from the reading of the text about boredom, and also collecting some reference of what activity, what action could make someone bored. So from there, I created my own series of boring tasks, and then these tasks were being experimented in PATH in these 2 weeks. So actually, the experiment, I will need to clarify my mind state during each task, and the aim was to arrive boredom. And this process, I have noted down every mind state in that particular moment, and then after that, I draw out maps of this mind state in order to help me understand how it was the journey of my mind state travel from one to another in that task. And this map actually helps me to discover how I have arrived to boredom, and also how I depart from this boredom to another mind state. And by using this strategy, it also developed my skill in gathering the results of tasks. For example, I learned to clarify different mind states slowly from each task. However, I have discovered that this map did not really help me. It could not help me to further discover something or bring me to another state or help me in other aspect. Therefore, I decided to use another strategy in order to help me summarize the result that I've gathered after practicing all these boring tasks. So, I tried to go back to the boredom definition that I've got from the sources that I found before I came to PATH. So I have select 3 definitions that I would use in order to analyze the result. So the first one is, boredom is the unpleasant state that occurs when we are not able to successfully engage attention. And this definition is by the psychologist named John D. Eastwood. So from this definition, I pick up the sentence of not able to successfully engage attention. And from the second definition, boredom is covering the emotions such as frustration, surfeit, depression, disgust, indifference, apathy, and feeling of being trapped or confined. This definition is stated by Peter Tuohy. And the last one I choose is the reactant boredom reflects restlessness and aggression. A person in reactant boredom state has a strong motivation to escape his or her boring situation. But actually from this definition, I'm only picking up the words, the sentence that I will use in order to analyze the next strategy of summarizing the result. So these 6 symptoms will be used to define the boredom state. I assume that by having this symptom, I am actually in the boredom state. So then, I have created this table. From the tasks that I have did, I try to categorize them into 4 different boredom categories. And this actually is gathered from the map I drew and record what I have collected, and I make it into this category. So the first one is called shadow of boredom. I define this shadow of boredom as intent to be bored but did not arrive at any boredom state, yet it has the symptom of boredom. The symptom I refer back to the 6 symptoms that I mentioned before. And the tasks that have arrived this shadow of boredom is actually fast clapping hand, alone in the tent, and walking in the circle. From here, I only choose one, which is alone in the tent, that I would like to talk about. And I would like to show you a little short video.
Can you move the mouse?
Yeah.
Mouse? Yeah.
So during this task, I will need to stay in the tent as long as possible without any time frame. And during this task, I did not arrive to boredom, but there are shadow of boredom because I having this 3 symptoms that I engage with, which is the strong motivation to escape from the tent, to get out from the tent, from this task. And also I have this feeling of being trapped in this situation. And also at the end of the task, I have this feeling of frustration. And then the second category is called unclear boredom, where I define it as a subtle feeling of boredom with or without the symptom of boredom and has the intention to be bored. So these 4 tasks I categorize them into this unclear boredom. And now I would like to talk about the task of the Warhol firm. So during this task, I have arrived to a state that I define them as unclear boredom. In this task, I just need to stay and keep on watching the film as long as possible. And I found that there is 2 symptoms that I have arrived during this task, which is I feel being trapped in this situation, and I have lost my attention, I have lost my focus during this task. And the third one is the clearer boredom that I call, where I define it as a stronger feeling boredom with the symptom of boredom and has the intention to be bored. And the task that we're going to talk about is the clock watching, where in this task, I was not allowed to move,
Can you move the mouse?
distracted. I was not allowed to move my whole body at all in order to cut down distraction for myself. And I will need to put my eyesight on the second hand all the time, as long as possible, until I get really, I can't stand it anymore and I need to stop. In this task, I have arrived to this state of, I call it clearer boredom. And the symptom I got from this task is actually, I feel disgust, I feel restless, and I feel being trapped in this situation. And I have this strong motivation to stop or escape from this situation. And the last one is the real boredom, where I define them the unintentional or accidental boredom. So actually this happened when in a situation where Davide, he made me induced in a situation where I have to wait for him to search for an Italian movie, and he spent 20 minutes. He purposely bring me into that situation where I need to wait for him to search for a film, and it took 20 minutes for him to get to search for that film. And during that moment, I have this feeling of keep on waiting, and I try to be patient, and then at a certain moment I have arrived to unintentional bored, which is very clear, very strong at the moment. And from there I tried to distract myself, but then I started to lose my patience, I got frustrated, and then I got angry at the end. From this experience, I have realized the distinction between the bored feeling, between this bored feeling and the intentional bored feeling. And it gives me this interest of how intentional and unintentional action can actually create such distinction on boredom. And then from the whole process of research, what captured my attention is how one, unable to arrive to the real boredom state, where she was so desperate to arrive to be bored. And this research at this stage has concluded that real boredom is unachievable when there is a desire. From this thought, it brings me to the action of I like to know more about to know more about
15 minutes, by the way.
to know more about the difference between intentional boredom, which is the unclear and clear boredom, and the difference between this and the unintentional boredom. And I found that the intentional boredom, it happens with a conscious mind, and it feels unreal, and it often confuses me, and sometimes I hard to recognize if it's really boredom, and it disappeared in few seconds. But on the other hand, the unintentional boredom, it happens suddenly without having prepared for it, and it is very clear and strong, and it stays longer compared to the intentional boredom. I have this unpleasant feeling and desire to escape it, and in that situation, I need to distract myself to dissolve from the feeling of boredom, and it constantly coming back to me. And by having the conclusion just now when I say the research at this stage has concluded that real boredom is unachievable when there is the existence of desire, then I've come up with this, I've searched for this text where it says desire is a state of mind that is commonly associated with a number of different effects. A person with a desire tends to act in certain ways, feel in certain ways, and think in certain ways. For example, he gave, if Nora desired tea, and then Nora will typically make herself a cup of tea. If she does not get herself some tea right away, she will nonetheless typically feel the urge to do so. She will find the thought of tea pleasant and will find her current lack of tea unpleasant. So, from this example, I try to put it in my situation. I replace the boredom as the tea. I will find the thought of having boredom is pleasant for me, and the lack of boredom is unpleasant for me. Therefore, this could be one of the reasons that makes the difference between intentional boredom and real boredom. Because this is contradicted with the essence of real boredom, I think, because the real boredom, it is an unpleasant state. It is an aversive state. And from this understanding, I try to relate it into Peter T. Ho's statement where he said that a boring task is always a boring task, but if you choose it for some reason, its boringness is somehow mitigated. So, go back to my case, I'm the one who chooses to arrive to boredom. I want to be bored by doing the dull task. And for this reason, the boredom state I have arrived was alleviate, it's less painful and less intense, and it has been reduced from the real boredom that we usually have. Therefore, it creates the distinction of the boredom that we desire and the boredom that comes naturally. At the end of this research, I would like to indicate the question again, which is it impossible for one to arrive boredom state while having the desire to be bored? Which at this level, I am still not sure what is the correct answer for this question. And from the whole process, I also realized that at this stage, it seems like this project is still not yet an artistic project, but just to remind once again that my aim for this research in part was to challenge myself and explore in the state of boredom, rather than going to the stage that started to create artwork or something artistic work. So in these 2 weeks, I'm just putting myself in a situation where I try to challenge and explore and discover the boredom with the existence of a desire. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Vivan. Now, before we finish, I have some questions so that I can help you explain some things. And if you have any questions, it's not feedback, it's really just questions. It's just asking things maybe that we didn't hear very well. So, I have two questions for you, Vivan. One is, I'll start with the last one until I find the other one. You say in the end that this is not an artistic project, so my question is, what makes an artistic project?
What I mean here is I haven't assumed this work as a product, as to become a product. So it's just discovering and searching, but I haven't really put my thought that this will bring into a product. Because what I think is that from this experience that I discover, I will try to find other ways to utilize this experience to bring it to another stage, rather than saying this is already an artistic work. So it is a project, but it is not an artistic product. Yeah.
Okay, so I understand.
Okay.
That's great. Then I have one more question for you. When you mentioned the tent experiment, you say that this is a shadow boredom, and you say that you have these 2 or 3 symptoms, but you didn't explain to us why it's not real boredom, but it's a shadow boredom. Can you explain to us a little bit why it's shadow and not real?
Because at that stage, the shadow boredom, at that category, the task that I put in this category is they have not arrived even the unclear boredom or the clearer boredom when I try to categorize them, because these tasks did not arrive to that state yet.
So what's the difference? I don't understand. You can explain to us. Did you have other emotions that didn't help you being more in a boring situation?
I call it as a shadow of boredom is because it brings me to the state of this different symptom that I somehow can say by having this symptom I can be considered as bored. But in this situation I did not arrive to even the unclear boredom or the clear boredom, but I already have this symptom.
I see. Thank you very much. David, do you have any questions? No. Thank you very much, Vivan. Well done. 23 minutes.
I'm stopping.
What?
I'm stopping.
Yeah.